Welcome everyone to Bedtime Mysteries with Andreajohnsonbooks. I am Andrea Johnson, your host for this evening, and the purpose of this nightly interlude is to help my audience go to bed with a simple thought. Who is it? My short bedtime mysteries will leave you with many questions. You will always end the evening with something to ponder or decipher. Tonight, we continue with part 6, the conclusion of Instinctive Manipulations. The couple in an unusual predicament, only together for a few weeks, when suddenly every single one of their past relationships start to die off. At least now we know it isn't simply jealousy. In our previous segment, poor Derek and Regina found themselves facing each other in a life and death match, realizing that they are nothing but pawns in a much deadlier game. Our story takes us now to a showdown between love and death, and the price a person is willing to pay for both.
Derek and Regina felt the submission take over, the numbing sensation of no emotion, no pain, only obedience. They stood to their feet slowly and faced each other. Two people came forward and silently handed them each a long sword, lethal and effective. The kill command was initiated, the light gone from their eyes, as they both raised their swords for the fatal impact. Suddenly, the glare from Regina's engagement ring glinted, and the reflection shot onto Derek's weapon. The brief flare of light grazed his eyes only for a moment, but that was all it needed. Instantly, like a knee-jerk reaction, Derek dropped his sword and fell to his knees before Regina, just as she swung towards his head. The sharp steel missing him by inches. He lifted his eyes and looked at the woman he loved, just as she was poised to move again. Derek opened his mouth and shouted the words he'd waited to release. "Do it now, Alan." As soon as the command left his mouth, everything stopped. The people, their parents, even Regina, all froze in place, like a switch had been turned off. A single man began to move forward into the crowd, walking past the now captive statues of the people around them. He came to stand over Derek, looking at him soberly. It was Jessica Romero's brother, Alan Romero. His eyes shone a gleam of satisfaction as he held his hand out to assist Derek to his feet. "That was a really close one, Derek." Alan shook his head at his friend. "We should have put a stop to this the moment everyone was here." Derek stood to his feet and looked around at the frozen people. His eyes came to focus on Regina. "I had to make sure it worked. We couldn't take the chance of being wrong. I see now the power this thing really has." Alan withdrew the box his sister had given him. He grunted in agreement. "It almost didn't. I had to really convince Detective McNeil that I'd given him all the evidence." His eyes took on a hardened look when he thought of the corrupt cop. "What my sister discovered was incredible. not only a people controlled by a microchip, but an actual self-destruct code embedded into it. All of these people, every single one of them, was programmed to die after obtaining their target, only to be replaced by another. No trails, no evidence leading back to the organization. He looked at Derek in sympathy. It was amazing how she knew a light source could offset your program. She remembered the metal plate in my head. Derek's jaw clenched as he thought of his lost friend. She knew Regina's ring would bring me out, allowing me to give you the command. Derek looked at his watch and his heart sped up. It's now or never. Alan held the box open and motioned to Regina. You better get her out of here now. This isn't gonna be pretty. Derek nodded, looking at his frozen father one last time before lifting Regina over his shoulder. He gave his friend a grateful nod and dashed out of the warehouse. Pumping his legs, he jumped into the car with Regina and swiftly placed a large silver spoon in her mouth. Within seconds, a loud siren went off, a horrible piercing noise. Regina's eyes instantly rolled back into her head. Her body began to twitch and convulse, biting down hard on the spoon. Unable to watch her suffer, Derek turned on the radio, knowing it would be happening all over. Individuals everywhere in the city would be collapsing right now, their brain fried beyond repair. It was unstoppable. The only way to destroy the chip was to destroy the host. The kill command was given in reverse. Jessica had designed the signal to reprogram and restrain, but the only thing it understood was death. Unfortunately, there was no way to save them all unless they had something metallic within their bodies. Putting on the hoodie left from his father, Derek turned back as Regina stopped shaking, and he watched her. She gasped, taking a deep breath as if emerging from water, and opened her eyes. She looked over at him, the man she loved. They stared at each other in silence. She didn't know what happened or why, but one thing was very clear to her. She was alive because of him.
I hope you enjoyed the conclusion to Instinctive Manipulations, and I'm sure it left you with many questions. How did Derek know that Jessica's brother held the evidence to take down the organization? And how was Alan able to deceive the detective? Have you figured it all out? Let's go over it together.
In part 2, Jessica Romero had taken the key out of the box to examine it. She'd already known they were onto her and were coming for the key. She knew she was out of time, so she'd placed a small message within the address, knowing Derek would understand it immediately. It was Detective McNeil that slipped into her home, killed her, and took the key out of the box, but he didn't think to take the box as well. In part 3, Derek's father encouraged him to go to the address on the key, and Regina's mother said to go to the police. Both parents knew it would lead to their children's doom. But what they didn't know was that Derek had seen the hidden message that Jessica had sent him, a warning that she'd prepared him for since they'd met years ago. She'd known about the organization all along, ever since she'd placed Derek under hypnosis and his heavily controlled brain had revealed everything. When their death started occurring, Derek had known the time had come. In Part 4, Jessica's brother approached Detective McNeil with the evidence, false evidence that he and Derek had put together. It was designed to draw them out, and it had worked. When the detective left, he was followed by Alan, and Alan confirmed the address and location of the warehouse. The plan was then put in place to take down an organization that had been run for generations. A plan compiled by the recently deceased Jessica Romero. Unfortunately, Alan had not gotten to her in time to prevent her death. In Part 5, the plan was in place as Derek and Regina went to the warehouse. Alan had already disposed of Detective McNeil and had used his key and hooded clothing to enter into the place. He had the box that Jessica had created, a box very like the organization's, except this was used to create a signal that short-circuited every living person carrying a microchip in their brain. The low signal would freeze them. The high signal would kill them all instantly. The message she sent Derek was a symbol, a small silver circle, a message he'd memorized during their hypnosis sessions. The symbol would trigger the memories, and the metal plate in his head he'd received from an accident long ago would protect him from the signals. But he needed a trigger. Derek had chosen Regina's ring, and Jessica had programmed the reaction into his thoughts. Derek and Alan knew the risk and didn't want Regina, who knew nothing of what was going on, to be affected. The plan was to freeze everyone for a few moments, giving Derek time to take Regina and place a silver object within her mouth, giving Regina's brain the signal to resist, just as Jessica had hypnotized her mind to obey.
And so there you have it, ladies and gentlemen, an organization manipulating the minds of people everywhere, using a hidden device planted in them from birth to do their bidding. I guess it took one of their own to take down such an entity. That, and the amazing instincts of a highly intelligent woman. Tune in next week for a new story and a new thrilling twist. Bedtime Mysteries can be seen Monday nights at 8 o'clock Central Standard Time. Please like my page on Facebook at Andreajohnsonbooks. You can also follow me on Twitter at AuthorJohnson78 or on Instagram at Andrea the Creative Author. You can also visit my site at Andreajohnsonbooks.com. I wish you a good night, sleep tight, and don't leave your windows open tonight.